throughout the webinar, if at any time you can't hear me or you can't see my screen, let me know. You can just send me a quick message in the chat. I know a couple of you have done that already, and I really appreciate that. So we'll get started here. Welcome to the Church 360 Ledger Setting Your Budget webinar. My name's Anna Johnson. I'm the Assistant Marketing Manager here at Concordia Technology Solutions, and I'll get my picture up here on the screen in just a minute. There I am. So you can see I've been here since about January working with Peter Frank, who's our marketing manager. We're really excited about our Church 360 suite of products, and I'm really excited to show you about these updates to budgets in Ledger. I know our development team has been working really hard over the last few months, and they've gotten the kinks out, and I think it'll be really great for all of you. Here's our training outline for today. I'm hoping that overall our webinar will take about an hour. It might go a little longer or a little shorter, but I definitely want to be respectful of your time. So I'll be up here presenting for about 45 minutes. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to give you a general overview of how budgets work in Ledger. And including that, I'll show you about setting up your chart of accounts, setting your fiscal years, and also setting those general budget numbers. Then we're going to spend the second half of our webinar. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of the recent improvements that our developers have been making. We've improved the budgets view. We've given it a full screen view. We've also allowed you to enter just a total in the total columns and divide it by 12. We've changed the export a little bit for budgets, and we've also allowed you to copy and paste into Ledger from Excel. That was one feature that all of our customers really wanted, and we're very excited that our development team has done that. In the last 15 minutes or so, we'll do question and answers. And I just want to add to this, if you have a question in the middle of the webinar and you just really need to ask it, or you're worried you'll forget, that's perfectly fine. Just send your question in the chat box and I'll get back to it at the end, or if it's appropriate, we'll stop and answer your question in the middle. So always feel free to ask questions. These webinars are a lot better when I have everybody asking questions. I can know where you guys are, what's confusing, or what you might need more clarification on. So we're going to just jump into it right here since we only have an hour. And we're going to go over a general overview of budgets. So included in here, selecting a fiscal year, getting to budgets in Ledger, changing all your numbers to last year's budget, last year's actuals, comparing your budgets to the previous year actuals, and I'm going to overview those buttons at the bottom of your Ledger view that have reset versus set changes, versus save changes. So let's take a look. I'm going to switch my screen over here, so if you guys can just give me a minute, we're going to go into our Ledger site. This is our training Ledger site, so I'm just going to sign in here. And hopefully this view looks very familiar to you all. This is our main Ledger home screen. You see we have the mini running balance graphs here and the large running balance graph. Here are some of our transactions in our budgets view from Ledger. But to start out with budgets, I think the first thing we always need to do is make sure that we have our fiscal year set. So for those of you who are just starting off or haven't done that before, I'm going to change that right now. So you can just go up to the settings cog and select this little icon that says fiscal years. In Ledger, you can start your fiscal year on any month you want it to. I know some churches are on that same calendar and fiscal year, which is great, and that's how our account today is set up. But I know at previous churches, even I've worked at, we were on a different fiscal year. We went July to June sometimes. I know some churches might start in September or October. So if your church does not start in January for your fiscal year, that's fine. You can just click on this drop-down menu, click whatever month you want your next fiscal year to start in, and then you would click Save to save your changes. You'll see there's a message up here that lets us know our new fiscal year has been created. And then, when I go to my budgets and refresh, for 2016-2017, we should see right up here at the top that the fiscal year will start in July and end in June. Now you'll notice here that this is our current budgets view, and you can only move back and forth 6 months at a time. And this was one thing a lot of our customers really found to be very troublesome. I know I even found it troublesome when I was working in budgets. When we get to the second half of our webinar, I'll show you how we fix that problem and we've actually changed our budgets to the full screen view so you can see 12 months at a time. I'm going to go back to my fiscal years here and just reset my fiscal year to start in January, because that's what all our examples will take place. After you have your fiscal year started, the next thing you want to do is make sure your chart of accounts is accurate. So this is our little sample chart of accounts here in Church360 Ledger. I realize that your own church's chart of accounts might be a lot more complicated. You might have a lot more categories, you might have a lot more accounts. Just to review, there's 4 big categories in Ledger. You have your assets, which would be your bank accounts, your liabilities, which are pending expenses and payments. You have income. This is usually the pockets you receive money into. You can see in our example church, we have our general fund, our young adults fund, music, missions, VBS. And then you have your expenses fund. So church staff, church expenses, and then you can make subcategories for each account of expenses. I'm just going to add in a quick income and expense account just to review for those of you who might not be super familiar with how the chart of accounts works. Chart of accounts is divided into accounts and categories. So categories are a big pot of money. So in the VBS category, you might have snacks, you might have decorations, you might have things like that. So I'm going to add a new account, and we're going to say that our church is setting up an endowment fund. So to add an account, you just click the Add Account button, type in your name. If your church uses numbering system for your accounts, you put it in the account number column here. You would set your initial balance. We're going to say our initial balance today is 0, and then you click Submit. That means we've added our endowment fund to the income portion of the chart of accounts. And you might be thinking, I don't know what this has to do with budgets, and I understand that. Our budgets are based directly off of your chart of accounts, and when you go to export and edit your budgets, you have to first change your chart of accounts from this setting. You can't change it on the actual budget screen. We did that because we want your experience to be consistent. We don't want you to be changing something on the budget screen and then you said, oops, I forgot to change my chart of accounts. So everything really in budgets and throughout Ledger is based on this chart of accounts right here. I'm going to also add an endowment fund to our expenses, and you can see here I have that categorization going on like I was talking about earlier. So the categories are these boxes that are aligned to the left, and then the accounts are the ones that are moved in a little bit more to the right, indented. And this is what I was talking about with Vacation Bible School, youth groups, and sub-accounts like this. I know we have one question about reports. Thanks, Shirley, for asking that, and I'll show you reports too before we get out of our budgets view. And you can see I have a special projects expense category here, and I also want to add my endowment fund to my special projects category. So I'll just add that in right here. I have no account number right now, and my initial balance would be 0. Once you've added all your income and expense accounts, you're going to save changes. One more thing to show you here. You can see my endowment fund right now is aligned to the left. And I want, just for the sake of organization over, just as simple as moving it to the right, and you can see the category indented for me. I'm going to click Save Changes. You'll have a confirmation box here. It says you've rearranged accounts or categories. It'll tell me how many accounts you've created or how many accounts you've deleted. If you decide at any time you didn't want to do that, just click the Discard Changes button. But in today's example, I'm going to click on Confirm. So there's a message up here. It lets me know my chart of accounts was updated. and we're good to go. Before I get into the actual budgets, I know we had one person asking about reporting, and that's a really great question. You might not want to report based off your budget screen. You might want an income and expense report. This little notebook clicking icon up here at the top of the bar is our reports button. We have four main reports in Ledger. We have the general ledger, which is just the list of all your transactions. We have your income and expense, your chart of accounts, and your balance sheet. So let's just click on our chart of accounts one right now. And you can see that your chart of accounts is listed exactly as it was in my other chart of accounts screen. Now this is a report, so this will include our starting balance, our ending balance, our debits, credits, and percent change over the year. You can also export or print any of these chart account views. And surely, once we get to the question session, we'll test out adding your account number and see how that prints in chart of accounts. One more thing, on most of our views, you'll see there's a date picker up here. It should always be on the current fiscal year, but you can always change that. So you have a few options from the date picker. And again, this should be consistent across all your views. You can select by quarter. So I've selected quarter 1 of 2016. You can select by month. So if I just wanted to see my January chart of accounts. And you can write in any time frame you want up here just by using this date picker button, and hopefully that's pretty familiar to all of you. So we've got back to 2016 right now. That's what our chart of accounts report looks like. And now I think since we've seen our reports, we're ready to jump right into budgets. So your budgets can be accessed by going on the settings cog and clicking on budgets. And there's this little delay in here. We hope that with our newest update, that'll be sped up a little. So I'm on the 2016 fiscal year for my budgets. And we're going to say for our example, I did not refresh from before. That's probably what happened. Okay, here we are, January 2017 to December 2017. Because when you're budgeting, you're always looking forward. You always want that next fiscal year to be set and ready. So I'm going to select next year's budget. And when I do that, you can see I've cleared out my 2017 budget because I don't know what I'm going to spend next year, and that's fine. We give you a couple options for getting started in budgets, especially if you don't want to go into that report screen, print out all your reports, have those in one section, and make your ledger on another section, and maybe Excel on another screen. We've really designed this so you can have all your numbers right here in this budget screen, and I'll show you a couple of those options right now. So the first thing is there's this change all to drop down menu right under budgets, and you have a few options. You can change it to last year's budget, and as soon as I do this, it auto-populates my budget based on what it was last year. Now, a cool thing I think about Ledger is that this number is not set in stone. It's just giving you a starting place. So if I saw that last year in January we had budgeted $30,000 for the general fund, and I know that our church has grown since then, and we're probably getting more offering donations in 2017. I can just click in the cell I want to change and then enter my new budget number here. So we're going to say we're going to budget to have $30,000 for next year. You also always get these two reminders below your budget screen, your previous year's budget and your previous year's actual. This is based on your category, your fund, and even the subset of that account. So if I want to change my young adults fund, say I know we've grown with more young adults at the church, I can just change that quickly to $50. Notice how it won't change the previous year's budget or previous year's actuals. And you can do this just going straight down the line with your chart of accounts. You can go through your income and expense accounts. Now, say you get halfway through and you realize you were looking at the completely wrong set of numbers. I know that I've done that sometimes. It's no fear. You don't have to worry about going back and changing every single entry. Our developers, right at the bottom of the budget screen, have added this nice reset button, and I use this quite often in my own example cases and when I'm working in Ledger just to learn more. The reset button will reset it to your original state. So remember when we started off a couple minutes ago, I had my 2017 budget zeroed out. You can see that that reset button quickly zeroed everything out for me. Now, just to explain this a little bit more, if your 2017 budget started out with some numbers in it, the reset button would not reset everything to zero. It would just reset it to its previous state before you went in and made your changes. I hope that's clear. If it's not, we'll go over that at the end of the webinar in the question section a little bit. One more thing I just want to show you. Maybe you don't want to change everything to your last year's budget. Maybe you're saying, hey, I want to base my budget for 2017 on actual numbers at my congregation. Now you can see in our example here, we didn't start out entering things in Ledger in January or February, but in March, we had $62,000 coming in the general fund. And if you remember, my previous year's budget for the general fund was $25,000. Wouldn't we love to all have that problem, getting in more money than we had budgeted for? So I know that for 2016, probably I need to set my new budget number somewhere between that previous year's budget and the previous year's actual. So for our example purposes here, I'll just set this to $50,000. And I can use my tab keys on my keyboard just to do that all the way across the rows. So we'll just do this real quick. I'll just go through June. And then when I've done that, you can quickly hit enter and it'll go down to the next row. We hope that when we designed this, that most of your shortcut keys were what you're used to if you're working with Excel or any other computer program. So tab will always bring you to the right and enter will always add you to the new row. Once you've changed your budget and you've gotten everything just the way you wanted to, there's one more important step. None of these numbers right now are set in stone, as I was saying. You need to scroll down to the bottom and click on this aqua-colored Save Changes button. This is what saves your changes permanently to your budget in Ledger. So I'm just going to do that right now. And I should get a confirmation message right up here that lets me know my budgets were updated. So that's excellent. That's great. The next thing I want to go through in our webinar is I'm actually going to switch back to our PowerPoint slides because we're done looking at the current views in Ledger. The next thing I want to do is show you guys what our new views are looking at. So we did all this, we took a look at it. The next thing we're going to do is talk about those new updates I was mentioning earlier. So if you remember at the beginning of the webinar, I said that our developers had been working really hard to make a bunch of updates to budgets in Church360 Ledger. And I'm just going to leave all of these up here. These are our main updates within the full screen view. The first thing I want to do though is explain to you how we're going to show you these updates. You notice that when I went into Ledger, the screen looked probably exactly how your screen looked. It had the 6 months, it had the totals column on the right hand side. It was pretty plain, pretty consistent, hopefully with what you have at your church. The next site we're going to go into is our beta site. And beta is simply a name we use around here to explain the site that we use for testing. So at Concordia Technology Solutions, we have our programmers, our developers who write the software. And then we actually go through a couple rounds of testing for every update that comes out because we want you guys to have a good experience when you get the new products, the new updates. So this update, this Ledger Budgets update that I'm about to show you right now is actually on our beta site. And just so you know, sometimes because it's still in testing, there's still a few bugs that need to be worked out. So if at any time I'm showing you something and there's an error message or it doesn't save, don't worry, that's the purpose of beta. That's the purpose of having a testing site so that we can go through those frustrating experiences before you can. So on our beta site, there are the things, I've already mentioned them a couple times before. I just want to compare with you some slides. So this is what the current budgets view look like. You can see it only showed 6 months across the top. The total column was moved all the way over to the right. This is what the new budgets view will look like, and we very much hope that you enjoy it. We spent a lot of time brainstorming and thinking about the best way to change this budgets view to make it more helpful. So the big thing you'll notice, the total column, which was previously over here, has moved to the left, and I'll explain why that happened in a couple minutes. And the biggest change is that you now can display 12 months across the top here. You don't have to use your arrow or tab keys to tab through 6 months at a time. Just another note here, I took this screenshot in a fiscal year that started in August, but your budgets view will automatically update so that this leftmost month column is always the first month in your fiscal year. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to take a look. I'm going to switch back to Ledger. And this is what I was talking about earlier. My subdomain for Church360 Ledger is CCC, Christ Community Church. To get to the beta site, and you can try this too, just know that not everything on beta is as good as it would be on production. You just add .beta up to your URL up there, and then click enter. So it'll give you the same login screen, the same login credentials for beta. And just give me a couple minutes here. And now you'll see it picked up at budgets, and we have this nice full screen view over here. The one thing I'm really excited about in the middle of all this is that we've added the ability to be able to divide your total column by 12 in this new view, and you can see that right over here. So one very common customer feedback we had that actually prompted this development milestone was that people didn't want to go through each month and enter the same number for each month. And I understand that. If your budget for your general fund is $25,000 every month, you shouldn't need to enter that 12 times. You should just be able to enter your total. And we've updated it now so that you can just enter your totals column and we'll do the math for you. So I'm going to just show you that real quick right now. So I'm going to change my general fund budget for the year to $250,000. And as I do that, you can see that our monthly totals are updating all along the way. And so I changed it to $250,000, I think. Yep. And you can see January through December automatically updated of 250,000 divided by 12. Now you'll see that for the first 6 months it's 0.34 cents, and the last few it's 0.33. That's just because that's how the math works out. Our developers have figured out all that math, so you shouldn't have to think about even those little cents. It should all add up for you. And you can do this for any fund or any category. So I'll just show you a few more examples quickly. Say I wanted to add my young adults fund. Well, we'll make it an even number, 600. For the year, you can see everything automatically updates to $50, and you can just go right down the line and increase or decrease your budgets for each account and each fund as need be. I hope this is something that you guys will enjoy and implement and use. We worked really hard on this. And that's, again, the reason we move this total column to the left over here, because you shouldn't, if you know your total budget for the entire year, you might not even need to look at all these other columns. You can just edit things as usual. Now I'm going to go down to my VBS income budgets over here, because we realized that in some instances you're not going to have a consistent number for your budget for each month, especially when I think of things like VBS or maybe even Sunday school. You might have a majority of income come in one month of the year and the rest of the months it's pretty scant. So I'm going to just increase our overall VBS budget to $600. But I know that I don't usually get VBS donations in January, February, March, or April, because people aren't always thinking about VBS during those months. You can see I can update certain months without affecting the other months on the right, And as I update those certain months, my budget total updates automatically. So again, we don't want you to have to be worrying about math and Ledger. We want Ledger to do the math for you so you can focus on your ministry and on your giving and spending patterns. Now, say I had $50 budgeted for May, but I know that in those summer months, people are really thinking about giving to VBS and they really go overboard with giving. They're so generous. So I can increase my budget to maybe $200 for May and June and then have it taper off again in the rest of our months. It's just that simple. And this is an income account, but you can do the same with an expense account. Let me show you how that works over here. I'm just going to scroll down to my expenses section. So you can see our budget here, but say maybe I know that our VBS snacks is going to be more in one month than the other. I can just increase that 1 month and then leave all the rest of the meds here. Hopefully that'll make sense to you guys as you're going through. I'm going to slow down just a little bit because I know I've been going really fast. So if anybody at this point has questions about that new view, now would be a great time to put them in the chat. If not, we're going to actually move back to our PowerPoint and I'm going to show you the second part of that big budgets update I was telling you about. So we looked at the full screen view. The second half of this milestone that our developers have been working on has been giving you the opportunity not only to export your budgets, we've always had export a long time, but to edit those budgets in Excel and also copy and paste them back into Ledger from Excel. And that's the new part. Before you would have to maybe work in Excel and then re-enter everything in Ledger. Now we have a new process for that. So as I was saying at the beginning of the webinar, the first thing you want to do before you export is to set your current chart of accounts in Ledger. And we have a very important reason for this. If you try and set your chart of accounts in Excel and then import in, Ledger is not going to know what happened and it might mess some of your numbers up. If you added, say, an endowment fund in Excel but not in your chart of accounts, the endowment fund might get slipped over or might get a wrong number in there. So step one, set your current chart of accounts. Step two, export to Excel. Step three, make your changes in Excel. Step four, and then paste your corresponding cells into Ledger. And as I was telling you earlier about those category cells, those gray cells, those get skipped over when you're copying into Ledger, again, so you don't have to worry about the math. And we'll go through this step by step as we move forward. Here's just a few views of what I was telling you. This view is what our export will look like in Excel, and we'll circle back to this. You can make your changes in Excel. You can paste into Ledger. There's a little screenshot there. And now we're going to take a look. Timothy had a really great question. Thanks for asking that, Timothy. When will those beta site changes be implemented? We're hoping that either this week or next week we'll have the beta site changes live on production. So definitely we want to get it done before the end of June, but we're just not quite sure about this week or next week yet. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Ledger beta site. See, it left off right where we were. There we go. I'm going to scroll up to this top of the screen here, and I'm going to click on this Export to Excel button. And hopefully you'll be able to see that my Excel export opened right here at the bottom of the screen. Now you might see this says budget 7. That's because I've tested this particular variation 7 times. So that's why that name is right there. I'm going to open it just like you would open anything in Excel. And I just need a couple minutes for my computer over here to get going. And I'm going to move my Excel budget over here. One thing, just kind of a tip that I've noticed, obviously to edit anything you'll need to click the Enable Editing button. But if you don't click the Enable Editing button, you'll notice that all your total columns look like they're set to 0. Don't worry about that. That's just how we developed it because of the way the formulas work. And I'm going to expand this total column so you can see our numbers here. So this is what the export will look like coming from Ledger as you work in Excel. You can use any of your normal Excel functions. I believe even this cell is summing the other column totals from that row. All those functions you use normally in Excel but might not be as clear in Ledger. So I'm going to just enter some fake numbers in our export right now just to show you the change that takes place. So I'm going to say this is $50,000. And I actually added $500,000. Wouldn't we all like an extra 0? And then I'm just going to make all these to 50. And so you can use your arrow keys, all those things. And I'm going to add $50 to our new endowment fund. Now in Excel you can do your regular copy and paste functions. I'm just going to copy this and paste it all the way over, just for our example here. And you can paste values, paste special. You'll notice that these total rows updated because those are based on a formula, and the total column updated because that's also based on a formula. And you can do this in any income category, any account category. Now, when you're ready to paste back into Ledger, select the area that you want to paste in. The only thing you'll not be able to paste in are these income and expense account names, and that has to do with what I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to select my entire income category. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go back to Ledger, and Ledger does automatically log you out sometimes. That's a security thing that our developers put in place in case you mistakenly walk away from your computer and you don't want others to see your budget. So I'm going to go back to my budget and click in the first cell you want to paste into. So in our example, it'll be the income cell. Now you can paste in either way you're used to pasting. You can do right-click and paste, and hopefully you saw that all my numbers automatically updated there. You can also do your Control-V paste. And the reset button that I was talking about earlier works with your copy and pasting too. So I'm just going to do a couple more variations of this problem just to show you all the things that you could do. Now maybe in Excel you just want to work on your totals columns. Maybe you don't even want to worry about each month. You can select the entire column, the entire totals column, and just paste one column into Ledger. So I've already copied that. Again, I select this top gray cell. This time I'm going to use Control-V. And you can see that all our totals updated all the way down the row there. And because of the way Ledger uses that divide by 12 feature now, all your months updated automatically as well. You can also use that copy and paste if you just want to copy and paste in a row. So we'll go back to our endowment fund over here. Since that's a new fund, maybe I just want to have $100 for every month in our endowment fund, but I don't want to change anything else in my budget. So you can just select that entire row, copy, and then paste it into Ledger in the appropriate fund, and it'll automatically update. I think those are all the variations of that would display. I just want to show you one more thing in our export here. Let me get that back open. Probably the one line, whether it's the export or just in your regular budgets view, you want to pay most attention to is this income less expense line. That'll tell you how you're doing, whether you're making money this year or whether you're losing money. Now we all know that churches aren't out to make millions of dollars, but we want to use good stewardship. We don't want our church to fall into a deficit year after year. We want to have money for things like those endowment funds, vacation, Bible school, things like that. So I just want to show you what this income less expense account would look like if you budgeted to have a shortfall instead of a surplus. We're going to just pretend that our expenses here were way over the roof. Say we had $800,000 in expenses. If you scroll down to that income less expense button, that'll tell you whether or not you have the surplus or the shortfall for that year. One more thing, and I think I showed you this, but if you want to select the entire sheet in Excel, and I know I missed a row in there, you can also paste that entire sheet into Ledger. We'll just show that for one last example. And there we go. So there's our budget. Once again, once it's saved, just click Save Changes. And it'll let you know your budgets were updated and you'll be good to go. So those are the two main things in our new budgets view that I wanted to show you guys. If you have any questions, now's a good time. I saw we had one more. I'm going to start answering those questions, and then at the end of the webinar, I know we're a little bit early than I have planned. I'm going to show you a few more things. I'm going to talk about our Ledger blog because that's something that you can use not only for this product update, but for all product updates. We're also hoping to have more educational content on there. So let's go through that first, and I'll let you guys get all your questions out, and then you'll go through them. So just to make you aware, I know that we've been slowly trying to build up our audience for the Church360 Ledger blog, but sometimes the right people don't always get the right emails. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody here today in the webinar knew about the Ledger blog, and I can bring it up for you in a couple minutes. So if you go to 360ledger.com/blog, it'll show you the Ledger blog. And this is where we officially put all our product updates. I'm going to move my Ledger screen over. Here I'll go to concordiatechnology.org, and I'm going to do Church360/Ledger. This is our Ledger site that we had. This is our main blog for CTS. But if you click on products and go down to Ledger, and then click on this blog button right here, this is our Ledger blog, and you can see on April 20th we had a blog post about updates to beginning balances. We also had one about updates to permission roles a couple months ago. If you haven't seen those blog post updates, please read through them, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have a new post on there about the things I just showed you from the beta view in Ledger, so keep your eyes tuned for that. If you decide that you want to receive instant email notifications about what's on the blog, what product updates are coming out, you can always subscribe using this box here. Just put your email address in, or you can just add a /subscribe. It'll take you to your form, and it will ask you your name, your email, your position at church, and how often you want to receive email updates. So if you do want to receive our updates, but you don't want an email every day, we totally understand that. We don't want to overflood your inbox and have you feel frustrated. So you can select whether you want monthly, instant, or weekly notifications. Instant are the ones that take place on a daily basis. So I definitely encourage you at the end of the day today to go to our blog, subscribe, and sign up. That's the one way to consistently receive updates about when these product updates are released, what's coming out. And again, hopefully we'll have more educational content coming in the future to help you dive deeper into some of those questions that you may have. So while the rest of you are getting in questions, I know that Shirley and Timothy both have questions. So I'm going to go to Shirley's first, and then Timothy, I'll get yours. So I'm just going to go to our beta site again. In Shirley's question, for those of you who can't see, it says, I would like account numbers to print out reports. Can this be done? Let's just try it right now. So let's go to our chart of accounts. I'm going to just add, oh, we don't want to do it down there. We want to do it in our building fund. I'm going to add account number 10 in my building fund. I'm going to add account number 5 in my young adults fund, submit, save changes, confirm, and then we'll go to our chart of accounts report, and we'll see how that shows up. Yeah, Shirley, it looks like you are right that the account numbers don't show when you print. Maybe that was your experience. Maybe that's what you were asking about. One thing I can do, and this goes for any questions you have, if you ever have a question or a suggestion, let me know. And Shirley, I think that's a great recommendation. I think we should be able to print numbers on our chart of accounts. So I'm actually going to put that into feedback because it looks like it's not applicable right now. So thanks for bringing that up. I'm sorry we can't do it right now. Timothy, what's the advantage of exporting in Excel versus working the whole time in Ledger just to see the formulas? Yeah, Timothy, we mostly did that because a lot of our customers, I think, are more used to working in Excel and they had some hesitations about working in Ledger. And so we did it more of as a convenience type thing. It's not necessarily because one's better or the other. The same sum functions now are available in both. I think that some people, they were a little bit frustrated that you could only see 6 months in Ledger at a time, and they thought if they could see 12 months in Excel, but hopefully with that update we've resolved some of those questions. So hopefully that answers your question. I know that was kind of a roundabout answer. But the long and the short of it is it's really up to you. Some people work in Excel also because they maybe go to the church council meeting and they have Excel open there and then they get back and they don't want to re-enter anything. They just want to use what they were using in church council. I know in our ledger manual that should be here in a few months. It's not quite ready now. One of our big recommendations or big acknowledgments is that Excel export is really useful for sharing information with people outside of Ledger. We know that sometimes only the church treasurer or maybe the office manager are in Ledger, but maybe a pastor or a ministry director would want to see those financials. And that's really when we usually recommend exporting to Excel. Good question. I'm going to give everybody else a couple more minutes here. I know I breezed through that really fast and we're about 15 minutes early today. While I do that, just want to make sure you guys all have my contact information. You can give me an email there or give me a call. I'm not always at my desk. I definitely always try to answer your emails in 1 or 2 business days. Just a reminder that today's webinar recording is also going to be posted on our YouTube channel, and since you guys all attended today, I'm going to send you out an email. The email will have a link to the video on our YouTube channel. It'll also give you a link to that product blog, so in case you didn't have that written down, you can do that. Also, another big thing, you can call our software support. I actually sit across from all of them, and they're all very helpful. They're willing to help. And just like me, if you have a great suggestion and they know it's not a feature we have right now in Ledger, they'll put it in our feedback. Our developers look at that on a daily basis and really are striving to continually make the product as awesome as possible. So I don't see any other questions. I'm going to stay on the line for just a couple more minutes in case any of you want to follow up on your questions, if you have an additional question. But other than that, if you've seen all you need to see, you're definitely welcome to exit the webinar. And again, we'll post the recording to our YouTube channel in a couple minutes later today, this afternoon, or tomorrow. Thanks again for attending, everybody. Okay, it looks like we have no more questions, so I'm going to sign out to you here. Again, just email me anytime you have a specific question, and thanks again for listening in today on our webinar.